Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the R.O.I podcast. In the business world, that means return on investment. In our world, that means reliable opportunity investments. I'm so happy today to be here with my co host, Drew Finchum. Say hello, Drew.
What's up? Happy to be here as always. How's it going?
Going great, man. I'm great to have you, man. Drew will be popping in and out throughout the night, but I'm excited about this podcast this week. You know, most of you know that I'm a real estate agent. I'm also a property manager, and I pretty much wear a lot of hats. But I'm excited today to have my buddy Charles Gorman here. Charles is a local realtor here in Knoxville, Tennessee, specifically mainly the South Knoxville area. But we brought him on tonight because Charles has had a lot of experience in investing. He's kind of got a little bit of a blue collar background and everything, and we just really love to have people on that are real. And that's what we want to be with this podcast. We want to be real and authentic. Charles, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, I'm pleasure to be here.
Good, good. So, Charles, tell me a little bit about you. Kind of give us a little intro, maybe your little elevator pitch to kind of get us going here.
Yeah, Charles Gorman. I was born in Massachusetts, but moved here when I was 3 years old with my family. Grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. If you're familiar with that area, you got the Oak Ridge National Lab, incredible schools. We'll probably touch on investing strategies later, but I invest there. It's a great area to grow up, learn, and then also invest in. I used to work at the local pizza place, Big Ed's Pizza. So one of my things,
Let's do that shout out to Big Ed's. Tell people why Big Ed's is important around here.
Yeah, Big Ed's has been an institution since 1970. The guy, he was Big Ed Newsel was, I can't remember which branch of the military, but he ran a tight ship, always gave opportunities for high school students. And a lot of times they were the ones that were pre-juvie. And so it got a rough and tough crew, and they had a kind of, hard knit together. And, I was fortunate to make some of my lifetime friends, learn how to interact with people. Again, we'll probably talk about some of this stuff later, but one of my beliefs is you can take one thing from every aspect of your life and be able to apply it to another part, especially with investing and stuff like that.
Right, sure. So, Big Ed's Pizza around here. Drew, have you ever had Big Ed's Pizza before?
I was literally just thinking, I've heard of Big Ed's for years, but I've never made it out there.
I think we need to have a road trip to Oak Ridge one day. Maybe all three of us will go grab us some Big Ed's.
I live on like the opposite side of the spectrum. I live out in Granger County where the tomatoes are the size of watermelons,
Right,
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
a good little trip.
For sure. Yeah, one day that'd be something we go do one day. But anyway, so the humble roots, growing up in the area, working in the fast food industry and in the hospitality industry, that's a challenge in itself. But so, you've got a little bit of a blue collar background, a little blue collar roots, because a lot of people think, well, real estate agents are these guys that drive these Beamers. I've seen you drive a truck. You're not that guy. So tell us a little bit more about how that fashioned you as a real estate agent and how that blue collar roots kind of, made you who you are today.
Yeah. So hopefully I'm not jumping around too much, but I started to try to get outside of myself. So I was looking for opportunities to get into investing and do things. I thought about like mobile car washes, flipping furniture, whatever. I was on that trying to figure out a way to do things. But my dad was a builder. He had me on the job site stacking wood when I was real young. He taught me the value of work. And my mother, she actually had gotten into property management long term, not short term like your expertise. But we never thought of ourselves as people who could be real estate agents or even investors. But we knew how to work on houses, and that was a really good segue for me. I went to post-secondary school to paint cars, actually. Again, that helped me with attention to detail. So going from working on houses, working on cars, getting my real estate license, I didn't know how to be a salesman, but I knew how to make connections with people, working at restaurants, and just interpersonal skills that I'd cultivated over the years, and use the blue collar stuff to connect with other blue collar people at first. But over the past few years, I started niching more with investors.
Right.
So it's good to have that background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the hard work, the labor, the intense days, and just basically putting hammer to nail, or maybe paint to car.
Yeah.
You learned a lot about life. What are some skills that you learned from there? Because I think most people think an investor is some guy, that's got millions and millions of dollars, but I mean, really, that's not where you came from. I mean, you truly are kind of a ground up kind of guy.
Yeah, and this might be the point of the episode per se, but I really think anybody can take their skills, like police officers and school teachers do really well in real estate because they have certain processes. And one of the things I learned from painting cars in particular, that attention to detail, but there's a particular process that you have to follow for it. You have to prep the car a certain way. You have to do the body work a certain way. You have to get the paint booth clean. You have to do all these things in a sequential order to where if you just take that same mindset and put investing into a system, then you're going to be able to make it not feel as daunting per se.
Correct. So tell us about what's your first experience with investing in the real estate market? What's your first experience?
So my parents bought the hoarder house across the street from the house I grew up in. And if I back it up a little bit, they were real estate investors before we even knew there was a term or whatever. So I was born in Massachusetts, like I said. And then when my grandmother was having issues, we moved back to Massachusetts in 1998, and then we lived there till 2001. And during that time, my parents rented the house that I grew up in to some members at the church. So they didn't want to sell. They knew they wanted to come back at some point. So that's another tactic you do. Keep jumping. It's a different type of method for investing. You can buy a primary, move on to another primary, keep that last one as a rental. So that wasn't in our thoughts. And then going back to that house in 2012, and it vacant for years, full of junk. Inhabitants. It had raccoons living in there.
Wow.
And I've seen that episode.
Yeah. Oh man, I still have, the guy was a world traveler. It was really cool. I still have some beer mugs from England that I got out of that joint.
Oh, well.
But yeah, I was the free labor.
Oh, okay. So, okay. I totally understand. I was a flashlight holder back in the day.
I was.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Hanging out walls, hanging sheetrock, doing plumbing, stuff like that.
Sure.
So, yeah, that was, I had no choice. I mean, I think it was in my early 20s or late teens at the time. So, I had my own thing going on, but I still like to help my family.
Sure,
and if I could give a testament to anything, my parents have been anything where I'm at. So I want to give them a shout out.
Oh, totally. I feel the same way about my parents. Drew's got
at that point, did you, like, during that process, like, were you still thinking like real estate's something I want to get into, or was it like just kind of like, I'm just sweating, whatever, like, as they were going through, like, getting that property or whatever, was you thinking about real estate yet, or was it still just like whatever?
I always knew I wanted to buy my own house, and I always loved the option of buying a house and making it the way you want it. So I knew I wanted to buy a fixer up for myself. So about a year and a half later, I started looking for my primary, but never thought that was, it ended up being a rental. And hopefully I'm not jumping around too much on you, but they were able to put my sister and her young family in that house, some other members from the church. I think my brother lived there for a little while, and then it got converted into a rental. So one of my strong beliefs is, one, don't be a slumlord, and two, real estate investing can be a really good opportunity to help others get to where they need to go, in between housing and stuff. So it was more like, hey, there's a crappy house for $40,000. It needs to be fixed up because, it's a blight on our street anyhow. And, but it still didn't click. It really didn't click.
So when did it click? When did it start clicking?
So one of my favorite mentors, and I haven't seen him since COVID because he's a little bit older gentleman. So in 2010, I'd already been living in Knoxville by the time they bought that house. I paid for I was not a student of Dave Ramsey, but I never believed in debt. I was save up. I had a 1990 Oldsmobile Regency that I bought cash. It was a Hoop D. I got pulled over all the time. But a guy took a risk on me and rented me his place in Knoxville for $495 a month. And I didn't have any credit. My parents kind of talked to him as well, said my son's a good guy. And he took a chance on me, which again, that helped me progress a lot. But he owned probably 75 houses at some point. And then I think his portfolio is around 30. And the thing that clicked with me, he asked me to work on some of his rentals. He's like, hey, you always fix stuff at your place. Why don't you help me out when somebody moves out, paint it, fix the backsplash, do whatever? I was like, yeah, sure, man. He paid me a whopping $11 an hour to do it, but I curated a lot of unique skills. And
working for Mountain Dew money.
Yeah, hey, but I had my day job and I was doing it, little extra scratch, and just knew I was learning. And one of the things that stuck with me that he said, Charles, you got to start making money when you sleep. And I was like, Homer, I don't know what that means, but sounds good to me. Right. And he said, there's something in you, and I think you got it. You just need to take some.
Homer sounds like the guy who's sitting there cutting an apple with the pocket knife. Is that the wisdom? Is that the guy? Yeah, is that who I'm picturing in my brain?
I think it's hard to judge a little bit older, and I hate to age somebody, but he had to have been in his 70s, early 70s, mid 70s when I was renting from him. So he's in his mid to late 80s now. But virile, like lots of energy. He was a hard ass too.
Really?
He'd call you, say, Charles, you need to mow that lawn. He'd check up on his properties.
That's good stuff.
But he bought the house I lived in for $3,500 when he was 18 years old.
Wow.
So he was a huge inspiration to me. So that kind of
sounds like a good mentor to have at your age.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So from that point, what's your investment journey from there? Let's just kind of start at the beginning and kind of work our way through it.
Well, I'll go back to Homer again.
Okay.
So he gave me an opportunity. He owned 2 properties up in Kentucky. So that's where his family came from. So he owned a bunch in North Knoxville. He spoke the value of buying in the same area. So you can keep an eye on your properties, try to cluster your purchases, and you could buy from your neighbors. You can always, if you got a property, then people know, and you can keep an eye on when people move out, get a divorce, whatnot. So clustering is one of the things he spoke about a lot. So he wanted to get rid of his Kentucky properties. He knew I was looking for opportunities. And
reliable opportunities.
There you go.
Reliable opportunities. Yeah, great. But this one, I don't know. He might have spoke too soon.
Okay.
So I can't remember the lake, but it was about an hour and a half out of Knoxville. But it was not a lakeside property, but just the street. You could see the lake view, and it's a beautiful old 2-story, I think Victorian style home, if I remember correctly. That was a complete crap hole. Had a tree growing through it. There was holes through the exterior. He said, Charles, I'll sell you this property for $40,000. I'll sell it to you on seller financing. Just throw $200 a month on top of your rent. You've never missed payments. You don't have to do any credit thing. Just we'll write up a promissory note, and then here's $200 extra on your rent. Just give me $700 a month instead of $500.
Sure.
And I brought my dad and my mom up there because I lean on them heavily, and I was like, man, this is a lot of work. It's an hour and a half from home. I wanted to fix it up and flip it, and I ended up turning them down. And I was like, look, I think I understand the opportunity you're giving me, but I just can't do it. And he called me a couple weeks later. He said, "Hey, Charles, I just wanted to catch you up on what's going on with that property. I got it sold. We should be closing here soon, and I'm selling it for $60,000 cash."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, great. Good for you, man.
Mhm.
That's hell yeah. I know you offered
Sure.
it to me at 40."
Mhm.
And he says, I'm not calling to gloat about making an extra $20,000 and closing quicker and getting cash in my pocket. What I'm calling to tell you is try to identify when you see an opportunity, you need to take it. And we were having a conversation. It wasn't just student listen. I know I need to sometimes shut up, and especially when I'm around him.
Sure.
But I was like, "Hey, man, it was just too much work for me. I feel like it was a good opportunity, and I just didn't want to do it and not be able to take it down." He said, "What you got to remember is if the universe or somebody's giving you an opportunity like this, if you're going to be too loyal to the process and not look at your exits, then you're not going to be able to succeed in it." So he said, "I wouldn't have cared if you seller financed it from me, paid me 2 months, $400, and then you just made $20,000 and you sold it for $60,000. So that stuck with me a lot. And he expressed a story where he had turned down an opportunity and missed out on something similar.
Right. Okay, so
I think it's kind of I think that's kind of important because, like, I think a lot of times it takes, with some of the big payoffs, it takes a little bit of luck. And I think a lot of times, like, people get so hung up in, well, I don't want to take any handouts and I don't want any help and I want to do it on my own. It's like, man, like sometimes when I think people come into your life for a reason. Like, I think it's important to, like, not be afraid to, like, like you said, capitalize on opportunities and people that come along and stuff in your life. And, like, we often get so hung up and, well, I'm going to do it on my own. And,
Right.
I'm not going to listen to nobody. And it's like, I mean, dude, if a door opens, like, it doesn't make you any less of a, entrepreneur or American success story if you capitalize on, an opportunity that presents itself. So I feel like, I mean, that's a pretty important, because I know Vernon's just like myself. We've had a lot of luck along the years and people that have tried to help us out and stuff. And, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I like this Homer guy. Sounds like a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
Sounds like somebody I'd want to sit and listen to talk for hours on end. So, Charles, as you progress through this thing, where were you at that point then, once you realized that this opportunity might have been something you should have jumped on? I mean, so where did it go from there? Tell us a little bit more about that.
A little fire under me. I still remember. I remember getting that phone call. So I was dead set on getting my primary, and Homer encouraged me as well. And my parents, of course, say, "Hey, you're paying rent, but you have home ownership, you're actually paying towards something." So my primary residence was my first personal investment. And that was kind of the key that unlocked. And now I've gotten lucky with the market and everything and being able to utilize some of the equity. But when I was able to buy my primary residence. I bought it in South Knoxville. That's why I'm a South Knoxville guy now.
Right.
But it was a fixer-upper, and I worked there every day for 7 months plus after my regular day job renovating it.
Wow.
I maxed out a credit card. I think I renovated the place for around just under $20,000. Maxed out a credit card, pulled out some retirement that I had saved up, and just shoestringed it. Took the old cabinets, sanded them down, painted them, got some extra cabinets from I think it was Craigslist at the time. They didn't have as much Facebook Marketplace, but just knew the attention to detail and doing everything myself saved a ton of money.
Right. Okay. So with your primary, do you still have that property, or is that something?
Yeah.
Do you still live there?
Yeah, man.
Cool, man. I didn't know that.
It's 7 minutes to downtown.
Mhm.
You can hear the fireworks when Nealon
Right.
is going off.
So-
I love living there.
I mean, let's just be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
you made some money.
Oh yeah,
You probably could live anywhere you wanted to.
could.
I mean,
yeah.
so why do you live there?
I don't need to live in a big lavish house.
Okay.
It's a 2-bedroom. I think it's 1,200 square foot.
Mhm.
I like my step grandfather was pretty humble man. He don't know his total finances, but he always had a leather cigarette pouch. He didn't smoke, but it was always stacked full of cash.
Mhm.
I kind of like to be the person in the back of the room that
Mhm.
maybe knows their stuff and isn't flashy.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I don't know. I think I can connect with people more if I'm in a
Right.
middle space rather than a place coming looking down.
Oh wow, that's great. Because see, that's me and Drew. We're both that way. We don't believe that you have to drive a fancy car, live in a fancy house in order to be somebody in this world. And I know people all the time. That's what they live in. They're leaning against their car. Striking poses. In front of their fake planes and stuff. That they're trying to teach people how to do investments. But the reason we want to do this type show is because we want to talk to real people who've done it the right way and built something. Now, granted, we may talk to guys that have done it before, but what I'm finding in my investment journey with talking to people is just finding people that they just seem to just have figured it out a little at a time. And I think so many people think there's a fast track to getting to the answers. So if we were to ask you some like lessons you learned along the way, what are some of those lessons that you've learned along the way? Like, I know you said that you're not a debt guy. I know a lot of people that leverage a lot of stuff. Have you ever leveraged before?
Oh yeah. I'm a debt guy now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. That's good.
I love using other people's money. I
Okay.
think it's just when I was younger, I
Mhm.
just didn't like the idea of owing people. I don't like owing personal people money, but I have no problem taking it from a big group of people.
Okay, cool.
Or any kind of bank or anything like
Sure.
that. That's how I got into my fourplex, was through hard money.
Mhm.
I had a lender kind of blow smoke. I was early in my real estate career. I didn't do a lot of sales. I think I was a year and a half in. You should be 2 years in before you can get a traditional type loan.
Mhm.
I told them all this up front, and then they're like, yeah, underwriting's not doing your loan. I was like, well, I got this deal locked up and I want to close it. So I went to hard money. So I'll pay whatever fees to get a deal done.
Can you explain a little bit about hard money and what that means?
Yeah.
To the lay person that doesn't understand that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different products out there. I'll give a shout out. Longhorn Investments helped me with that one. Their product and just other products that are similar, they'll give you the purchase price plus the renovation. They look at the asset, and then they'll look at your financial statement, but that's not the only deciding factor. So let's say somebody is a licensed contractor or has partnered with some deals on investing and stuff. So they'll give actually preferential rates if you've got experience in it. So they didn't count the experience that I had, but it wasn't enough. There was enough that I had to get that. And then they want to see a little chunk of money in the bank. So when you do your renovations, you pay for them up front, and then they reimburse you once the job is done.
Okay.
So it's not, you have to you either partner. I think Pace Morby calls them gators, or partner with a private money lender who can help you in that barrier. One of my cliches is, if somebody tells you no, find somebody who'll tell you yes, because there's always somebody who will underwrite it and do it. Vernon, I'm sure you've got a lot of great connections for lenders. There's a million out there.
Right.
Yeah, that can help you.
For sure. So we talked about that Kentucky property.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever invested in a dog? Have you invested in something crappy?
Yeah.
You passed on that one. Is there something else out there that you learned a lot from because it was so bad?
So the first, I guess, nugget lesson that we talked about was don't pass up a good deal. Another lesson that I learned the hard way is you can't lose money on something you don't buy. So there's also something to be said of getting into partnerships and starting LLCs with people, and when to do an LLC versus doing a joint venture agreement. Those kinds of things are something that you should internalize and think very hard about. There's two problems. If you're trying to be some kind of an investor, you either have no money or you have too much money, or there's going to be the potential of having money. So whenever those kinds of things come up, that's where marriages or partnerships and things like that can go awry. But pretty much every project you do is going to have some kind of hiccup along the way. But if you don't have people who are aligned, and that was my personal one, I won't get in like details of the actual address and like all the names of partners and stuff. But my advice would be don't go into business with anybody you wouldn't marry on a trust level wise, not necessarily have to be emotional or romantic, but
I mean, me and Vernon are, really good friends. We've been very good friends for over 12 years, and now we don't do anything without paperwork. I mean, it's not, like you said, when you get married, there's paperwork involved. You write your vows and stuff. So, that makes
it just sort of solidifies things and it helps you explain it down the road if you ever have to explain it. I made that mistake many times in my life, not getting people in some sort of agreement. So I think that would be something to really consider if you're going to try to do partnerships or syndication and things like that. So, well, Charles, I mean, how many properties do you have now? I mean, like how many you got? What's the portfolio look like right now?
Yeah, so I've got a fourplex in Oak Ridge. I've got my primary residence. I've got I sold out. Well, I was part owner on some trailers, and then those are gone now. So I've limited down to those, and then I'm really focusing a lot in Wartburg. So I have a rental out there on 1 acre, and then we just picked up 57 more acres. So totally, I think contiguous acreage, we have 78. I'm throwing all my shekels there right now.
Right. You were there the other day and you made a little Facebook post about it.
Yep.
Tell us what you found up there. I think that's pretty cool.
So Morgan County, we got Wartburg, Lansing, Sunbright, Deer Lodge. It's kind of been a pocket it's a very rural area. There's a deep Appalachian type of culture. I would never go in there and expect to change it. That's what is the charm. I was there, like you said, the other day, and one of the cool things is like you have different conversations with people at the grocery store than you do here in Knoxville. So I really admire the way and how the ingenuity that people have out there, and it is getting a lot more attention because it's a tertiary market outside that has a big draw for like outdoor activities. There's rock climbing at the Obed. The Obed River itself and the Emery River are great for kayaking, whitewater rafting type stuff. They've got Catoosa Wildlife Area where you can go either hunting or a lot of people take their 4-wheel drive vehicles. Anderson County side, there's Windrock. Then you got Brushy Mountain State Park, State Penitentiary, Frozen Head. So there's tons of outdoor activities and stuff that draw a lot of enthusiast tourists. And
so everybody's kind of focused on Gatlinburg and Sevierville, where it probably is becoming a little oversaturated. I mean, we won't go too deep into that, but you have to have something special there now for it to rent out consistently. So do you have a plan for that property?
Absolutely. So I might get a little bit up in the clouds a little bit, but want to combine outdoor recreation with land preservation, not necessarily conservation in a way, but the Rich Dad Poor Dad really stuck with me and a lot of different investors. And I don't know if I got the best lessons out of it, but I got one of the lessons I got was, all right, I can buy anything I want just as long as I convert it into some kind of an asset. So if I ever want to buy a boat or a jet ski, I'm going to turn it into a rental when I'm not using it. I wanted somewhere I could go disconnect with, being a realtor, we get calls all the time. I needed, for my spiritual and emotional health, I needed somewhere to go and just disconnect, go enjoy nature and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people are drawn to that,
Mhm.
especially with more and AI and all that stuff. But so it was a goal for me, and sold off a few things to where that's what I'm focusing on. And I
Mhm.
think it's probably a 10-year type process, but we want to have land where people can go do recreational things that are really cool,
Mhm.
keep them there. So you talked in your panel last night. He was on an awesome panel at
Mhm.
Grid where
Yes.
they talked about short terms. And
One of the local networking groups here for short-term rentals. We'll talk a little bit about yours in a minute.
Now, what
Yeah.
does GRID stand for again?
Who knows?
Grow relationships, invest, and diverse, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Awesome.
But yeah, great group, Justin Myers and Corey
Yeah,
King.
they're
Shout
really
out
good
to
guys.
them.
Yeah, we'll give shout outs to them. I'm gonna have them on the podcast one day. So
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But they, but you mentioned people are looking for an experience.
Mhm.
So we want to be able to provide somebody with a similar experience, but instead of the hot tub, it's your cell phone doesn't work out there. So that might be anxiety driven for some people,
Mhm.
but we want to have mountain biking courses, hiking
Great.
trails.
Mhm.
There's an awesome rock formation that you can go bouldering on. I'm into that as
Yeah,
well.
it's something you were posted on Facebook the other day. It was intriguing to me. That
Yeah, I'm trying to get some good insurance. So if
Right.
anybody wants to put that in the comments.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I know, Vernon's talked about that. That's one of the things that I don't know how well it necessarily translates in his talks and stuff, but I know, like, you've talked a lot about how not just the things everybody pays attention to, but like you said, building these experiences around properties and stuff like that. Because, like, I know for me, like, when I travel, I don't eat McDonald's or Subway or Pizza Hut or, whatever. I'm not going to go walk around Academy Sports and Outdoor, like I want to see stuff that's unique. And I know that was one of your big hanging points too on the Rental Accelerator Conference. I know you've got a guy that's like literally he's coming to speak just on what was it called again?
Some sort of, I forgot what it's, eco experiences or something is what he does. And
Eco experience consultant, maybe, I think. But
we were on a call today, and I talked to him a little bit about that, and he was talking about hospitality. And I said, man, I really want you to focus on that a little bit at the conference for sure. The R.O.I conference is coming up on October the 1st. We'll talk a little bit more about that here at the end.
Yeah, the Rental Accelerator Conference.
Yeah, the Rental Accelerator Conference. The
Rack Baby.
Rack Baby. Go Vols. We haven't mentioned that
Go
all night
Vols.
tonight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know you were. But anyway, so what we do with great opportunities when we get something and we, I was telling people last night in my my presentation, because everybody wants to see the pro forma, everybody wants to see all the information. They want to see, is this going to do cash on cash, all this, and they're focused on the money aspect, but without the guest experience, there is none of that. And so I always tell people that's got to be part of it. So I think it's great that you bought a property that you actually have an experience with, that you can kind of turn it into whatever you want to.
Right.
Going back to that whole idea of, taking something from nothing and creating something awesome out of it, especially a place where you can go unwind and do your thing. I was talking to somebody today about some property over off Norris. As an investor called me today, she goes, well, I just got this piece of property sitting around on the lake over in Norris. Would you be interested in helping me develop an experience?
Yeah.
Well, of course I would. I mean, obviously that's what I want to do with every property is create an experience. So, going toward, what's been your best investment? Do you have anything that you talk about that's basically your best investment?
I think that the little red house in Wartburg, I think that house, just on paper. So being a real estate agent, I bought it on market, paid a commission. I represented myself as a buyer. That was my flooring budget. So got, I don't know, $2,500, $3,000 off that. Used a HELOC that I leveraged my primary residence with to do the down payment and fund the renovations. I bought it at 122.5. I think I put around 30, 35 in it. So I had somewhere around 160 in it. And then I refied it. I think it came in at 198. So got 80% of that, cash out, refinanced, and all my money went back to my HELOC. So found some great renters. One of the things out in the rural areas, I'm probably one of the highest rentals out there. I never tried to be the gouging type landlord, but we put a lot of thoughtful things in there. You're on an acre. Now they're getting to experience 78 acres for the same rental price.
Sure.
But with the fees that I'm charging, I'm paying for gig speed internet, mowing, trash removal. So those are things you got to think of out there.
In a long-term sense, that's a very good added value, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because they don't have to pay for any of that. So
no, and fortunately, they have an incredible speed internet. Like,
oh yeah,
it's better
that's
than
hard
Knoxville.
in a rural area.
I know,
that's hard.
it's a Highland Telephone Company out there.
Absolutely. So let's kind of transition into like what the podcast is kind of about. So if I were to ask you today, what do you consider a reliable opportunity investment? What would you consider that?
A reliable opportunity investment. Probably where I'm gonna go in the future. I think some people, and we'll go back to kind of what play to your strengths. So for me, I had to shoestring things, so I used my skills to leverage, traded my time for equity in a sense. But if you have a bunch of capital, I think investing as a private money lender, I think when you invest in a property, you're never guaranteed a return. Right. Now, I will say, if I were to hold the property that wasn't great with that partnership, if you hold anything long enough, it's going to end up making money.
You're going to appreciate it.
It's going to appreciate over time. So I think lending might be the most reliable, in my opinion. Haven't got into that space yet. Because you have a promissory note, you have something there that puts you in first or second position note on a property, or something to where if they don't pay you, if you don't get your investment back, there is at least that paper there to kind of protect you. I'd say reliability wise, that's probably what I go with, or what your what your strength is. I mean, you'd probably tell people this, and it's probably more on the residential or long-term side, but I talk to newer investors a lot, and I've had older investors tell me stuff like this too: is don't buy anything that you wouldn't live in. If you wouldn't live there, don't buy it. And then,
well, obviously you still live in your first investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You took that one to heart, buddy.
Right. And if stuff hit the fan, then you might have to live in it one day. So something happens, you want to buy something that if that's your parachute, you can pull it. So I guess hopefully that answers your question.
No, again, I mean, I think that, going with the hard money lending side, but so let's talk property, because I think a lot of people want to get into the property side. So the hard money lending, I know doctors and attorneys and people that are trying to tell me, hey, is there a way that we can move some money and we can get a good return on it? But let's say that we're just like an average guy.
Yeah.
Would you recommend long-term? Would you recommend fix and flip? I mean, you've done a little bit of all of it. So what do you recommend to somebody just getting started kind of thing?
Again, it has to go with your personality and your capabilities. I don't have a capacity for short term. I do not like I can't get in my place. I'm like, well, I got other stuff going on and I don't care.
Exactly.
I hate to be
you're not a hospitality guy. Then
no,
I mean, it's perfectly fine to admit
I'm a hospitable person and I love talking to people, but like my mind and things I got going on, I do not like for what and this might sound bad, what I feel like is not a big deal. It's hard for me to put that on the top of my priority list.
Right.
So I really admire that ability about you.
Sure.
So for me, long term, and then maybe I'm going over a lot of the things that people may already know, but when you're running, I like single family. Single family could be converted into your primary residence, or your primary residence could be converted into an investment. What I tell people is run the numbers, and you've heard this before, like it was a long term if you want to do your short term. That way you have that buffer. I really like the midterm space, especially in Oak Ridge, but mostly I think finding what market you're in, taking off of what Homer talked about, clustering, try to be close enough to your place to where you can go check on it. Your level of work, or partnering with somebody who's willing to do the work.
So you would say long-term, maybe one of the best plays in your humble opinion. I know everybody has a different opinion, it's maybe not as profitable as a short
Yeah.
term, but it's probably a little bit more guaranteed income sort of
So
thing.
for me, I think I'm playing the long run.
Right.
So long run, long term. That's
Mhm.
kind of how I think
Sure.
of it. Short term, short gains.
Sure.
So if I'm looking to try to pad my wallet, and if I'm having an issue with,
Mhm.
paying now bills, I'm going to look at trying to pick up some opportunities that are going to get me that. What is it, Tuesdays when
Yeah.
Airbnb pays out?
Right. Yeah.
If that's a position you're in. So again, it goes to each individual goal, what
Sure.
you're looking for.
Right.
But
Have you tried midterms at all?
yeah,
Okay. Do you have any midterms?
Yeah. So my
Okay.
my experience with short terms is the same unit. It's one of the units at the fourplex. I have it furnished. It's a 1-bedroom apartment.
Mhm.
Average monthly rents in Oak Ridge for that unit would probably be around $950 to about $1,150.
Mhm.
I could probably pull in probably that $1,075 or so if it was unfurnished, because it's nice. Got I think it's maple floors. It's really cool little design. I'm pretty proud of it.
Right.
But we're again, maybe the 7-minute thing. We're 7 minutes from the gate
Mhm.
to
Of
R&L.
R&L. Mhm.
And so since I have opened that up for midterm rentals, I'm probably at like 98% occupancy. And really
That's
the only gaps are because somebody's contract won't line up. So there's also a hospital in Oak Ridge, Methodist Medical Center, that does contracts. Midterms a lot of times turn into long term. So they'll extend their contracts. I love it because I don't have to be on the phone with them every day or figure out what they need. But yeah, I'm getting $1,550 a month out of that same unit.
So you're making an extra $400 or $500 a month just because you went and found a niche of people, corporate travelers. What do you have? Nurses, corporate travel,
Mostly
R&L
people from the lab. Yeah.
Oak Ridge Laboratory. That's what we're talking about. There's big facility over near us over here. Oak Ridge is where basically built the first atomic bomb or something.
Yeah, they were
along those
part.
ways.
It was Los Alamos.
Yeah.
It was on that movie Oppenheimer last
Yeah.
year.
Did you ever watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
It is Stranger Things about R&L? You can tell us as a local.
I mean, so I would stand up. I'm about 6'3", and my favorite go-to is like, dang, you're tall, and I'm like, well, I drank the Oak Ridge water growing up.
That's right.
So that's what I tell people.
Right. I have a lot of love for Oak Ridge. That's a great area. I mean, that's a great place for midterms. Knoxville's becoming a great place for midterms right now. I got more and more people calling me because you got the University of Tennessee, you've got a bunch of major hospitals, you got major corporations like Pilot Corporation. There's some really big corporations in this town, and we get a lot of calls for, hey, will you help us with our midterm? Of course I will. I mean, normally we run it sort of like a short term. We still run it through Airbnb and that sort of thing. That way we can kind of get their backing on it in case something goes wrong. But in general, I mean, the midterm market's really doing well. I know you want to stay away from short term, so we won't go down that road. But so
that's the beauty of this podcast is where you were doing the short term pro podcast before. It's weird to hear you like, oh yeah, no, we'll just move on past that. It's like, it's like MJ saying, I don't feel like dunking today.
Sure, yeah. And Charles knows my heart on it. He's heard me talking last night. He knows what passion I have for short-term rentals. But again, it's not every investor. I mean, and I've got investors that call me, they want to get into short-term rentals, and they think they know what they're talking about. And then after we get to talking a little bit, they're like, maybe we should go midterm or long-term. I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I actually have a property right now that's a great property over in Sevierville that me and my buddy are going to go out and look at. She does long terms because it's just not performing. Great property, but it's not right there in downtown. It's not all that. And so she and I were talking last week. She's like, hey, let's just go see if we can do a 6 month or a year on it just to get some steady income coming. So, what looked like a very good short-term opportunity was not. And so we're looking at now either mid-terming it or long-terming it. And so not every investment that we think is short-term is not always short-term. So Charles, we got about, 10 or 15 minutes here left. So what I wanted to do was kind of, your give back to the community to me is how we met.
Yeah.
The first time I came to one of your events, tell us a little bit about South Knoxville and SoKno and why it's so important, because I think you can tell people why revitalization is
Yeah.
huge. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
the area you live in, 20 years ago was not the place where people wanted to live.
No, not
Now
even.
everybody's wanting to get rentals there and move there. And it's a great thing. So tell us a little bit about SoKno, and tell us a little bit about why you have a passion for SoKno.
Yeah. So it's a wild thing that it fell so far from grace at a certain point, because there's so many great amenities there. The oldest airport in the area is Island Home Airport. It's been there longer than TYS. People still take private flights out of there. That's where you can learn to get your pilot's license and stuff like that. So it's a tiny little airport that's an anchor on one side. You got Sevier Avenue, which is where all the current breweries, restaurants, it's all local too. So maybe just visiting Massachusetts, you go up to Cape Cod area. There aren't a lot of commercial places. It's all local. And like Drew said, like if I'm going to spend my money, if I'm going to vote with what I do with my dollars, I want to spend it local, help out the local people. So one of the brainchilds of that area was Christopher Morton. He's owner of South Coast Pizza, Alliance Brewery. He's starting a grocery store that I'm an investor in on. So he was instrumental into making sure that it had that hometown, not corporate-y type feel. And I'm just drawn to that. You also have IAMS, IJAMS, for anybody that looks it up online. It's pronounced IAMS, So that's
a nature center.
Yeah, they have rock climbing, quarry, you could swim and kayak, hiking, lots of nature, tons of ecology and everything like that. So beautiful area, and it actually feels like its own little community, a mini Asheville of sorts.
And so out of that love, that passion for that area grew your networking group, which I think is incredible, because we just basically go and eat pizza and have drinks and just kind of hang out. And
we have conversations like this.
Man, I've met a lot of people I've done business. As a matter of fact, there's about 4 people that I'm making money off of.
Yeah.
Just simply because I met you and I met some people at your group.
Yeah.
Because these people just walked up and started talking to me one day. We made friends, and I love SoKno. So tell me why SoKno is so important.
Well, Drew, you hit it earlier when you talked about you can't do it all on your own. So I had to get outside myself when I got early into it and said, I don't know shit about investing. I know a lot about working on houses, but I bit the bullet and said, I don't know enough. And then I went to an R.O.I meetup, and that was great, but it felt a little bit, it was fairly inclusive, but I just felt like I was out of my water. It wasn't very warm feeling to me, not to disparage it at all. Just for me, as a newer person who didn't know anything, it was difficult for me to feel like I should have even belonged in that room. So July of 2020, I was like, hey, I'm just going to start a group, and I'm going to tell everybody from day one, I'm not the expert. I'm just a host. I'm great.
How many showed up for that first event, the first meeting?
I think we had 7 people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
I've been there when there's been a lot of them.
Yeah. So,
I don't know how much what your biggest crowd's been, but I've been there.
I think our recent 4-year anniversaries, I think we probably had 70 or so at the most. But we've had times where there's 3 of us, just 3 of us sitting around the table. But we were able to grow our build more on the relationships we had. So that's what I encourage people to do.
Right.
You talk about your life, your kids, your church, whatever you're interested in. So it actually sticks, instead of going to a network event and being like, here's my card. See ya. I want people to know and care about people. It might not feel like you're accomplishing work, but I always go somewhere cool. We bounce around different South Knoxville places.
Support local businesses.
That's one of the goals. We try to bring 30, 40 people every month on a Tuesday night when it's going to be slow, and they love us. And I've never rented a place. It wasn't in my budget at the beginning. So doing it for 4 years, they all know me and they all love me. So people can build that relationship. They can meet people, and then they're like, Sean, my buddy, or Vernon's my buddy. But my buddy first,
Mhm.
my friend,
Mhm.
but also is a badass at
Mhm.
short-term rentals.
Sure,
Like that's what we want people to grow a real
Mhm.
relationship with people
Mhm.
and just be real,
Yeah.
and I think you attract the people that you're going to your personality. So I encourage people to start their own
Mhm.
meetups. You're gonna, if you want to high rollers, you meet at the rooftop of the embassy, like,
Mhm.
and you want everybody wearing suits, you're gonna connect with the people that you're looking to connect, and
Mhm.
we've been able to have that.
Right. Well, and I love
That was
what
one
we
of
do.
my. Oh, I was just gonna
Look,
say that was one of my questions too that I had kind of wrote down, and I feel like now's probably a good time to ask. But I know obviously you're a guy that sounds like it's really important for you to stay connected to your roots. But how important is it for you to not only stay connected to your roots, but how do you like make it a point and a purpose to stay connected to your roots, and as well as, like you said, collaborate with the people that is in your area that you're interested in?
Yeah, so I was, I have a hard time talking about myself in a way that's self-aggrandizing or whatever. But I think one of my skills is I'm really good at contracts, great at all this stuff, but I have the ability to go in different worlds per se. So I can talk to people at whatever level they are. So, somebody who's more affluent, I can dial it back. I'm not going to cuss as much or whatever, but
Yeah.
I can talk contracts. I can talk investment strategies.
right.
But one of my favorite business books, I always try to bring it up in any opportunity, is The Go Giver.
Mhm.
And this might have been a tinge of what you were asking. How do I not lose what I'm doing, but also try to strive to do more? Is The Go Giver. If you haven't checked it out, it's by Bob Berg. Phenomenal. It's my ethos. I try to give as much as I can and not expect anything, and then you'll grow from it.
Mhm.
There's no way not to.
Right.
But um, from that, if I don't succeed, and with the gifts that I was giving from being able to help different people, be able to talk to your blue collar or your white collar people, I feel like I'm a bridge between them
Mhm.
in a sorts, to where if I have to, that's my motivation to grow. My motivation to succeed is I can help more people.
Right. Right. And I think what's great about what you do is you bring the community together and you kind of just let it grow organically.
Yeah.
You don't really stand there and what you'll do to me a lot of times though. What I like is you'll come and be like, "Here's somebody you need to meet."
Yeah.
You've done that many a time because sometimes I'm the guy that when people are kind of like how
Yeah.
it is when I come. And what's funny is sometimes you'll just bring somebody over and you introduced me to a guy named Sean a couple months ago, and
Yeah.
Sean and I become good friends.
That's
And
fantastic.
I love that guy like a brother. I mean, we don't get to talk a lot, but every time we do talk, it's like
Yeah.
we've never missed a beat.
I love that.
And like I said, I've got business from it. But again, what I like about you, Charles, is I think you're just a good, authentic, humble guy. The first time I met you, I was like, that's a guy I could definitely do business with and hang out with,
Yeah.
because you see so many people out there that are just not authentic, and people that are just carrying around just so much bitterness and hate and anger all the time. And it's just refreshing
Yeah.
to meet someone who truly cares and genuinely. That's what I like about the guys from Grid too, is that Justin genuinely and Corey genuinely care about you as a
Yeah.
person, and they genuinely want to help you grow. And I think in the investment world, in the property management world, in the real estate world, if we could just get more of that,
Yeah.
I think we would do so much better.
Well, I'll tell you a pragmatic reason.
Mhm.
I try to stay cognizant and I do a lot of introspection. But
Mhm.
if I can leave a nugget with people about it, is nobody wants to help the jerk.
Mhm.
So, in a self-serving way, if you show some vulnerability, you don't act like you know it all.
Mhm.
People won't think you do. If you come off as like, hey, I know everything. I
Mhm.
always tell people at my group, I'm not the expert. I
Right.
don't have the biggest portfolio. I'm really great at connecting people, but um, you can get people to want to help you more if you
Mhm.
show a little vulnerability, show a little authenticity,
Mhm.
and you ask questions. One of the best way to make friends is ask questions and ask for help, because I believe, and maybe it's naive and I haven't found it to be the case because I'm always proven right, is
Mhm.
when you ask for help, people always help.
Yes, they will. And Drew's been telling me that for years. Vernon, you got to get out there and show people who you really are. And that's what I like with you is we were talking before we came on the podcast, sitting right here in my office, talking, and you're the same guy on this podcast, the same guy at your networking, the same guy doing business as you are anywhere. Yeah. And I can appreciate that about people, because some people can come off really fake and I just don't, you're just not the fake guy. So as we kind of try to wrap this up a little bit today, if you could just really, sum everything up, like you're blessed, you've got a lot of great things going for you. You are a connector by nature. So just kind of sum up, in the next couple minutes of, if somebody were wanting just to kind of get into this world, you always say be yourself, but they want to get into investing and do a deeper dive. I mean, what should they be doing right now? I mean, what's the first things they should be doing?
Finding like-minded people. Okay. I mean, if you hang out with druggies, you're going to be a druggie. If you hang out with, people who are succeeding, you're going to succeed. So, not to get off tangent too much, but I used to skateboard. That's why I like to take a lot of risks. If you hang out with people who are on the same level, you're never going to succeed. You need that one person or other people that are on a different level to be able to do it. And I also encourage people to go to networking. I mean, Reliable Opportunities has a great conference coming up, and then come to SoKno Investor Group if you're in the Knoxville area. You can talk to me directly. Sure. You can see Vernon there most times. Right. Try to just bend people's ears and ask them for help. Everybody started somewhere, and if you ask them, they're going to help in one way or another.
So you are correct. Reliable Opportunities has an event coming up on October 1st. It's called what, Andrew? You tell me to always make sure
it's the Rental Accelerator Conference.
Okay.
Accelerate them rentals, baby.
You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on the Gram. You can find it pretty much anywhere. I think reliableopportunities.com now goes to our link tree. So that's our little commercial. We've got a lot of cool people that are going to be there, going to sponsor it. As a matter of fact, me and Charles are talking about doing a little collaboration at the end of that conference, basically kind of marrying the two ideas together, which I think is great for us to be able to go and kind of hang together and bring some folks together and to network, because that's really truly what it is. We've put the QR code there if you're watching the video on the video here. So really just to wrap up our thoughts tonight, I think what we really all agree on here, Andrew, you can add anything to it, but we really just truly believe that if you're going to try to get into any kind of reliable opportunity investment space, whether it's short-term, mid-term, long-term, it could be mobile homes, it could be laundromats, it could be anything, building wealth in any way, you really got to have a good network of people. You've got to have, people that are authentic, people that are going to tell you the truth when you hear the truth. And ultimately today, what I gleaned from this today is just be true to yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you came from the poorest family or the richest family. We all got to get there somehow. Yeah. Some have better opportunities than we do if they've had a better life. But I mean, all three of us sitting here come from blue collar backgrounds. Andrew's dad owns a body shop. We all come from that same, humble beginnings. And as we're all trying to grow together, we're not going to get there by ourselves. We're going to have to get there working together with others. Yeah. So kind of as we close this out here, Andrew, you got any final thoughts on this?
I know you kind of covered it, but just one last time, Charles, if anybody that's listening or watching, how do they get in touch with you?
You can find me. Actually didn't touch on it. Started a real estate team, but my website, ethospropertyadvisors.com. And you can call me directly. You can give my phone number.
Yeah, absolutely.
865-323-9675.
If you don't mind people calling you, hey, that's great.
I mean, it's all over the world anyways.
Right. As we close out this episode of Reliable Opportunity Investments, R.O.I., please go check out our information, reliableopportunities.com. Go check out Charles's stuff. If you want to get somebody that'll truly connect with you, this is not transactional with this guy. We were talking about transactions earlier. He's truly not a transactional person. I really, truly believe that you guys will benefit if you reach out to Charles. Charles, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening and watching the R.O.I. podcast, the Reliable Opportunity podcast, and have a good week. And as I always say, love everybody and leave a legacy.